Everybody's worried about AI and robots. Oh, they're going to take the jobs. Let them. I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. All right? I don't want to deal with a 21-year-old kid with an attitude. All right? Every time you go, you ask a question, you get an eye roll. I'd rather have a, right away, sir. Let me go get your ticket, sir. Here's your ticket, sir. Enjoy your day. That's what I want now.
Good morning. It's Saturday, Rules Saturday, January the 3rd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and the return of the primitive. All that and more when I get back. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
They don't really care about the effects of socialism, whether it works or not, because if they did, they'd look at history. They would know that what they voted for not only doesn't exist, but it does not work.
New year, new you, new mayor. Keep your old investments that are working, though. I know it's not popular to say that. Small caps, they outperform large caps. That trend keeps playing out. Biotech's back in a big way.
Finally, the Iranian people have come to the conclusion that the mullahs really don't know how to run their country, and basically have run their economy into the ground.
We're 3.5 years into a bull market. Hopefully interest rates kind of the Fed keeps taking interest rates down this year. I just want to be a little more cautious going into this year. I think that's the right tone to set.
It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
Dulcet tones, a velvety song, Michael Bublé, feeling good. We are feeling good. It's the new year, first trading day of 2026, with the beautiful backdrop of New York City. It's 11 a.m. on the East Coast on this Friday. It is January the 2nd. I'm Ashley Webster, filling in for Stu Varney. Stu will be back on Monday. All right, let's take a look at the major markets. The Dow slightly higher now. The S&P and NASDAQ slightly lower. We've lost quite a lot of the wind in our sails since the opening bell. Let's take a look at big tech, always a big driver of the markets. It was last year, it probably will be this year, and now we're seeing more of a downward movement. Nvidia hanging in there, up 1.2%, but Alphabet, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon all moving lower. Let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury yield, see where that is standing right now. Up slightly at 1.6 basis points, 10-year at 4.18%. And take a look at gold. My goodness, gold had the best year or the biggest gains since 1979 in 2025. Right now, it's up a very modest 60 cents at $4,341 per troy ounce, just turning slightly negative right there. All right, now this. Peter Thiel has opened a new office in Miami for his investment firm. Thiel is one of many entrepreneurs trying to cut ties with California, with the state's billionaire tax debate heating up. Even an op-ed in the Washington Post argues, quote, California will miss billionaires when they're gone. Yes, it certainly will. Steve Hilton, if he had his way, there wouldn't be a billionaire's tax. He joins us now. Steve, have you noticed many wealthy entrepreneurs leaving California, or at least thinking about it?
Yes, they have been. They have been for years because the taxes have been getting higher and higher. We have the highest rate in the country on income, and that, of course, also applies to capital gains in California. And so much of our innovation economy is fueled by that. The prospect of capital gains when you start a business and then either sell it or launch it on the public markets, that's what's being deterred here. Innovation, the engine of our economy and wealth creation. So it's no wonder that since this massive onslaught of higher taxes and higher spending, we've ended up in California today with the highest unemployment rate in the country and the highest poverty rate. All that is just going to get worse if this insane and unconstitutional wealth tax comes in. But I can tell you now it's not going to happen because I'm going to be elected governor in November this year, and we are going to stop this kind of nonsense, take a sledgehammer to the bloated spending in Sacramento and actually cut taxes instead of increasing them.
And that was Varney and Company. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now Steve Inman.
Well, it looks like a 4-pack of soy milkheads trying to approach the alpha male, but surprise! Big left hook! Crosses over and booyah! His hat gets knocked off his head, and he's like, are you not entertained? They approach the alpha male as if they're on some kind of Broadway show, West Side Story, basically might as well snap your fingers. And right here, he just serves up a la carte shots to the friggin' chin. His neck snaps back, obviously like a friggin' Pez dispenser. Second guy comes in, leaves his head exposed, and booyah! Horses on a Popeye a la carte item. Now laying together, looking like a friggin' two-piece chicken combo with a side of Hawaiian punch. Great job.
And that was Steve Inman. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, rules for retrogrades.
Rule 21. All this boomerist moral abandonment by our cultural elders has produced the Miyagi complex, which must be negated. Western civilization struggles to fathom a single sagacious denizen of our own Western Christian culture fit to give sound moral or spiritual advice. The complex works like this. Virtue is so rare in the West that, in order to make any sense to the young Western mind, the perceived model of excellence must be sufficiently abstract or foreign. A mentor of the Far East turns out to be the only plausible candidate befitting the requirements of this semi-traditional moral exemplar. We are talking, of course, about the Karate Kid's Mr. Miyagi. Bankrupt Western culture sees literal and figurative Daniel-sans everywhere, fatherless either actually, like Daniel-san himself, or functionally, like any kid whose dad fails to teach him what he needs to know. Society's Cobra Kai, or secular humanist culture, prey on these many Daniel-sans, being raised defenselessly by single mothers who usually love them but neglect to teach them, because they are incapable, manly virtue, like fighting for honor or self-defense. Now, there's nothing inherently problematic about the Miyagi complex, except the abject lack of Western morality and leadership it reveals. Mr. Miyagi, after all, proved an excellent mentor to Daniel-san. He loved him better than most fathers of our day. But we cannot all be Daniels. Daniel was lucky enough to live in the same apartment complex as Miyagi. Most are not so lucky. Therefore, we must unlock the true virtue hibernating in the Christian breast and the Western canon. Only then will moral examples emerge in the West. Once more, there exists undeniable logic in the Miyagi complex. Mr. Miyagi was tough, wise, kind, and involved. By contrast, the fathers and grandfathers of most young men in the West no longer teach them to fight defensively. They are pragmatic rather than wise. They prove self-interested rather than kind. And most of all, they remain utterly uninvolved in the moral lives of their young. Simply put, there are virtually no wise elders in our midst, meaning our generation must rise up and dare to live virtuous, faithful lives. That way, our own children can, like all human beings throughout history, except for the last 2 generations, look to its elders for the location of moral treasures, practical shortcuts, and avoidance of moral pitfalls. The tough part, of course, is doing this without real-life exemplars. The boomers attempted to hybridize Christianity with libertinism, which is like trying to draw a circular square. But the duplicitous aim of their attempt to circle the square has been quite persuasive, at least in the view of the popular culture. Let's examine this in light of some previous rules. Christianity has been so sanitized in the popular mind that its teachings on chastity have fallen upon popular ears as utterly worthless and even silly. In this arena, as well, the Miyagi complex looms large. If the message of true chastity somehow gets transmitted to a child of the West, it will always be through some oriental means, most frequently through one of the martial arts. For example, boxers' chastity, think of the trainer Mick telling Rocky to lay off the pet store dame during training, will usually be welcomed, but never Christian chastity. In other words, the pseudo-chastity of the boxer is merely pragmatic, not moral. Blame boomerisms and the defanged version of Christianity they represent for this toxic phenomenon. It is most unnatural for a society's moral exemplars to be abstract, removed from the young. Nature mandates that the young learn by immediate access to wise leaders close at hand. Somehow in this generation, we must triumph over the additional cross of a largely bankrupt generation of elders. The only conceivable way of recovery inheres in looking to the one true man, Jesus Christ, and the saintly disciples he inspired over the course of 2 Christian millennia. We must become our own exemplars for the sake of our children. Mr. Miyagi was a fine model of protective, virtuous manhood in the 1980s. Karate Kid was a timely film in the sense that it instructed the next generation after the boomers, who desperately needed the message in whatever conduit they could find it. But it is high time for a new generation of retrogrades to live deliberately and morally, so that we may end what the baby boomers began. We must be the heroes and champions of our own families, for our own sons and daughters.
And that was Rule 21 from Rules for Retrogrades, 40 Tactics to Defeat the Radical Left by Timothy J. and David R. Gordon. And he gets it wrong. Boomers. No, liberals. That's the proper term. If he wants to use a term other than liberals, then he should say hippies. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now a little bit of motivation.
All your excuses are lies. Little lies that you think makes life easier, but they don't. Now I know in the morning, you got that blanket giving you a warm hug. You got the pillow, which is whispering in your ear, telling you it's okay, telling you to stay just a little longer. But don't listen to them. They're lying to you. Listen to your alarm clock, which is telling you to get up and get some. Listen to the weight room, the pull-up bar, which is telling you to face reality. And listen to your will, which is telling you to get up and crush everything, regardless of how you feel. Don't negotiate with weakness. Kill it.
See, in life, you can go through life, you can come up with reasons or you can come up with results. You can come up with excuses or you can come up with achievements. You can go through life blaming or you can come up with solutions. The choice is in your hands, satisfaction or despair. We can choose that.
You don't get better on the daggone couch. You get better by coming out here and getting the f*** after it every daggone day.
When that alarm clock goes off at 4 or 5 in the morning, your mind says no. You just say, this is what we do now.
My new norm is you get up every f***ing morning at 4 o'clock and you suffer. That became my new f***ing life. Most people want to get out of it. I said, no, motherfucker, this is your new life. This is who you are. I don't care how small it is. I don't care how minuscule the movement is, but make movement, move forward, and do that every single day, no matter what. You aren't getting any closer to your 5-year plan or your 3-year plan or your 7-year plan or any plan that you've got unless you get up and start getting after it today.
You can't just say you want it. You can't watch the video and say, I want it as bad as I want to breathe. It's true to say it. But when it's showtime, when the sun comes up, you got all the books, you got all the tapes, you got all the access. Now it's time to hunt. And what separates you from everybody else is that when it's time to hunt, you're ready to hunt.
Everybody wants the prize, but nobody loves the process. Everybody wants to be a champion, but nobody's willing to put in the work that it takes to be a champion. Everybody wants to hold up the trophy and say, man, I did it, but nobody's willing to put in the work that it takes to do it. I love the process. I love the thought of working for what I want. And I firmly believe you're never supposed to wish for it more than you're willing to work for it. Your expectations never supposed to exceed your effort. But a lot of people, they wish, and they're not willing to work. And the great thing about life has a funny way of testing all of us and seeing how bad we really want what it is that we say we want. When you work for something, it gives you a different type of attachment to it. The harder you work, the harder it is to surrender. That's why cats can give up so easy. They ain't got nothing invested. But when a cat work for something, like when a cat been sacrificed for something, well, you're going to have a cold day in hell before you take it from them.
Write down 1 or 2 things that you're going to commit to doing every single day, no matter what. You're going to use that motivation to become a machine every single day, no matter what. You don't think about it. When you have built a habit in such a way that the brain doesn't even have to consider whether or not it'll get done. It just gets done because you committed. Commit once to the thing that you're going to do, and then you do it every single day. That is what transforms you. It's not the grand visions. It's the tiny actions that move towards a worthy ideal. The good feelings in your body is an indication that there's something that you want. Now you get to work by doing it every single day.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little meditation. Thank you. Now, Javier Milei.
La dictadura atroz e inhumana del narcoterrorista Nicolás Maduro extiende una sombra oscura sobre nuestra región. Este peligro y esta vergüenza no pueden seguir existiendo en el continente o nos terminará arrastrando a todos consigo. La Argentina saluda la presión de los Estados Unidos y Donald Trump para liberar al pueblo venezolano. El tiempo de tener un acercamiento tímido en esta materia se ha agotado. Instamos además a todos los demás integrantes del bloque a secundar esta posición y condenar tajantemente a este experimento autoritario.
And that was Javier Milei. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is a little clip from Saturday Report. I believe it's by Newsmax. It is Newsmax, and they're interviewing a guy from Venezuela about Maduro's capture.
Because I believe that Caracas, he did have some armed protesters, armed residents that came out to join the military forces.
Well, first, you can't have a civil war when Venezuela has no, civilians that are pro-freedom who have weapons, right? I mean, only the regime has weapons. If anything, this is just still a dictatorship. Venezuela has no ethnic nor religious divisions. Venezuelans are united against the regime, except for this very small group of people who are drug dealers, who are paid, who are armed, right? And, the fake vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, is asking for proof of life of Maduro. Well, I would love to ask her for proof of life of my friends who are in prison right now in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. That's who needs proof of life, not Maduro. Maduro is indicted. He's going to face life in prison. And, maybe we'll get lucky and he'll face the death penalty. But it will be done under the rule of law.
There we go. Under the rule of law. How ironic. Because this whole operation was done unconstitutionally. Some people like to say if they extra constitutionally, but that amounts to the same thing. Anyway, so it's unconstitutional. There's nowhere in the Constitution that gives the President of the United States the authority to do what he did. He can act as a commander-in-chief, but when there's a war on, there is no war. We didn't declare war on Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, or anyone else for that matter, in part because President Trump put himself in a box. He declared himself to be the peace president, and he's never presided over a war, blah, 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 blah. So now, instead of doing the right thing, going to Congress, demanding a declaration of war, and then going to Venezuela and getting Maduro and his wife out, he takes a shortcut. He thinks perhaps that he's found a loophole. There's no loopholes in the Constitution. Now, I like the results. I'm glad that Maduro's gone. His wife is gone. It looks like the whole regime is now going to start falling apart. They're probably going to start feeding on each other and themselves. And hopefully we'll go back to having a democracy in Venezuela. But the ends don't justify the means. And again, it's ironic that this guy will say, oh, well, now we should and can celebrate the rule of law. Maybe next time. Back in a minute. Jerry Wayne.
Now, Cormac, I have read your books, son, and they seem less like novels and more like a man standing on a prairie holding a dictionary he's too proud to open. You ever thought maybe your books are too long, Bill? A man don't need 9 pages to say a mule died. Mule died, period. End of mule. See, now there is that barbarous little dot you're so fond of. You wield punctuation like a man hammering tacks into God's own tongue. I'm just saying, if the sentence is still going after a man's finished his drink, it ain't a sentence no more. It's a hostage situation. You behind, Bill. Catch up. I will catch up when the Spirit moves me, sir. Not a moment sooner, for I am a man governed by mystery and the slow, relentless tides of airborne Mississippi moisture. You're governed by too many words. A man ought not use 1,000,000 words just to say he smelt something. The dictionary ought to charge you rent. Well, a sentence is not a livestock auction, Cormac. It's a river, winding and patient, filled with the refuse and wonder of the human soul. A river's fine, but you ain't got to describe every grain of sand the river's seen since creation. Sometimes a man just wants to get to the damn verb. And sometimes a man should have the decency to include a comma, lest future generations believe him to be raised in a barn, devoid of grammar. Commas are cowardice. If a sentence can't survive, let it die, period. Son, you keep saying period like you're giving orders to a disobedient dog. If the shoe fits, period. Cormac McCarthy, if you say period at me again, I swear before heaven, I shall craft a sentence so long you will be but a footnote in its shadow. Bill, if you craft a sentence any longer, we'll both die of old age before you hit the verb. Cormac, yes, Bill, I do admire your work. Hate your sentences, but love your spirit. Likewise, my short-winded friend. Hear, hear.
And that was Jerry Wayne back in the minute. Thank you. Now from the Hugh Hewitt show, he's playing a clip of the new anchor of CBS News.
Tony again. Here's a lot has changed since the first person sat in this chair, but for me, the biggest difference is people do not trust us like they used to. And it's not just us, it's all of legacy media. And I get it. I get it because I've been hearing about it from just about everybody for more than 20 years as I've traveled America on this assignment or that. My mom's neighbors in West Virginia, my own neighbors in New York City, thousands and thousands of conversations in between. Sometimes people want to talk to me about our coverage of NAFTA or the Iraq War. Other times it's all about Hillary Clinton's emails or Russiagate. Or more recently, COVID lockdowns, Hunter Biden's laptop, or the president's fitness for office. The point is, on too many stories, the press has missed the story because we've taken into account the perspective of advocates and not the average American. Or we put too much weight in the analysis of academics or elites and not enough on you. And I know this because at certain points, I have been you. I have felt this way too. I felt like what I was seeing and hearing on the news didn't reflect what I was seeing and hearing in my own life, and that the most urgent questions simply weren't being asked. So here's my promise to you, today and every time you see me in this chair. You come first, not advertisers, not politicians, not corporate interests. And yes, that does include the corporate owners of CBS. I report for you, which means I tell you what I know, when I know it, and how I know it. And when I get it wrong, I'll tell you that too. It also means I'm going to talk to everybody and hold everyone in public life to the very same standard. After all, I became a journalist to talk to people. I love talking to people about what works in this country, what doesn't, and not only what should change, but the good ideas that should never change. I think telling the truth is one of them. I'm Tony DeCopel, the anchor of the CBS Evening News.
Okay, so good. I like it in that at least CBS is figuring out that they've done something wrong, and they're making an attempt to correct it. Although what they're trying to do is try to correct it through willpower. We'll just will our way to higher ratings and more credibility and integrity. It's not going to work until they recognize that they have a huge conflict of interest between reporting the news and making profits. They're never going to change. They're always going to be putting profits ahead of what is newsworthy. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the return of the primitive.
Their hierarchy of concerns is established by tabloid editorials. Their notion of reality does not extend beyond the latest TV talk show. Modern intellectuals used to denounce the influence of comic strips on children. The progress they achieved consists in pushing the children's interest to the front pages and freezing it there for life. The conditioning phase of the Comprachicos task is completed. The students' development is arrested. Their minds are set to respond to slogans, as animals respond to a trainer's whistle. Their brains are embalmed in the syrup of altruism as an automatic substitute for self-esteem. They have nothing left but the terror of chronic anxiety, the blind urge to act, to strike out at whoever caused it, and a boiling hostility against the whole of the universe. They would obey anyone. They need a master. They need to be told what to do. They are ready now to be used as cannon fodder, to attack, to bomb, to burn, to murder, to fight in the streets and die in the gutters. They are a trained pack of miserably impotent freaks, ready to be unleashed against anyone. The Comprachicos unleash them against the system. 5. In the avalanche of commentaries on the campus riots, a great deal has been said about the students, as if those manifestations of savagery were spontaneous, and about the college administrators, as if their policies of abject appeasement were repressive, but very little is said about the faculties. Yet it is the faculty that causes, inspires, manipulates, and often stage manages the riots. In some cases, the majority of the faculty supports the rioters. In others, it is a small Comprachico minority that overpowers the faculty majority by spitting in its face. And if you want to see a negative demonstration of the power of ideas, i.e., a demonstration of what happens to men devoid of philosophical convictions, take a look at the cringing moral cowardice of allegedly civilized scholars in the presence of a handful of faculty hooligans. There have been notable exceptions to this attitude, but not many. For several generations, the destruction of reason was carried on under the cover and in the name of reason, which was the Kant-Hegel-James Dewey method. When every girder of rationality has been undercut, a new philosophy made explicit what had been implicit, and took over the job of providing a rationalization of the student's psychoepistemological state: existentialism. Existentialism elevates chronic anxiety into the realm of metaphysics. Fear, misery, nausea, it declares, are not an individual's fault. They are inherent in human nature. They are an intrinsic, predestined part of the human condition. Existentialism elevates chronic anxiety into the realm of metaphysics. Fear, misery, nausea, it declares, are not an individual's fault. They are inherent in human nature. They are an intrinsic, predestined part of the human condition. Action is the sole alleviation possible to man. What action? Any action. You do not know how to act? Don't be chicken. Courage consists in acting without knowledge. You do not know what goals to choose? There are no standards of choice. Virtue consists in choosing a goal by whim and sticking to it, committing yourself to the grim death. It sounds unreasonable? Reason is man's enemy. Your guts, muscles, and blood know best. For several generations, the destruction of freedom, i.e., of capitalism, was carried on under the cover and in the name of freedom. The genteel intellectual conformists, mass-produced in colleges, proclaimed every collectivist tenet, premise, and slogan while professing their abhorrence of dictatorship. When every girder of capitalism had been undercut, when it had been transformed into a crumbling mixed economy, i.e., a state of civil war among pressure groups fighting politely for the legalized privilege of using physical force, the road was cleared for a philosopher who scrapped the politeness and the legality, making explicit what had been implicit. Herbert Marcuse, the avowed enemy of reason and freedom, the advocate of dictatorship, of mystic insight, of retrogression to savagery, of universal enslavement of rule by brute force. The student activists are the Comprachico's most successful products. They went obediently along every step of the way, never challenging the basic premises inculcated in the progressive nursery schools. They act in packs, with the will of the pack as their only guide. The scramble for power among their pack leaders and among different packs does not make them question their premises. They are incapable of questioning anything. So they cling to the belief that mankind can be united into one happily, harmoniously unanimous pack by force. Brute physical force is to them a natural form of action. Philosophically, it is clear that when men abandon reason, physical force becomes their only means of dealing with one another and of settling disagreements. The activists are the living demonstration of this principle. The activists claim that they have no way of attracting attention to their demands and of getting what they want except by force, by violent demonstrations, obstruction, and destruction, is a pure throwback to the progressive nursery school, where a tantrum was the only thing required to achieve their wishes. Their hysterical screaming still carries a touch of pouting astonishment at a world that does not respond to an absolute such as, "I want it." The 3-year-old whim worshiper becomes the 20-year-old thug. The activists are a small minority, but they are confronting a helpless, confused, demoralized majority consisting of those who were unable fully to accept the school conditioning or fully to reject it. Among them, a large group represents the activists' fellow travelers and prospective converts, the hippies. The hippies froze on the progressive nursery school level and went no further. They took the progressive nursery's metaphysics literally and are now wandering in search of a world to fit it. The hippies' lifestyle is an exact concretization of the nursery's ideal. No thought, no focus, no purpose, no work, no reality, save the whim of the moment. The hypnotic monotony of primitive music with the even beat that deadens the brain and the senses, the brotherhood of the pack, combined with pretensions at expressing individuality, at doing one's thing in the haze and stench of grimy coffee houses, which thing consists in the monotonous repetition of the same jerking contortions with the same long whine of sounds that had been emitted by others for days on end, the inarticulate extolling of emotions above reason, of spirituality above matter, of nature above technology, and above all, the quest for love. Anyone's love, any kind of love as the key to finding someone who will take care of them. Clinging to their nursery ideal, the hippies live down to its essential demand: non-effort. If they are not provided with brightly furnished rooms and toys, They live in dank basements. They sleep on floors. They eat what they find in garbage cans. They breed stomach ulcers and spread venereal diseases. Anything rather than confront that implacable enemy of whims, reality. And out of all those variants of progressive education's results, out of that spectacle of human self-degradation, there rises a grim, factual, unanswerable proof of the place of reason in man's nature and existence, as a silent warning to all the comprachicos and their allies. You can destroy men's minds, but you will not find a substitute. You can condition men to irrationality, but you cannot make them bear it. You can deprive men of reason, but you cannot make them live with what is left. That proof and warning is drugs. The most damning refutation of the theories of all the hippie activist Marcusian hordes is the drug-glazed eyes of their members. Men who have found the right way of life do not seek to escape from awareness, to obliterate their consciousness, and to drug themselves out of existence. Drug addiction is the confession of an unbearable inner state. Drugs are not an escape from economic or political problems. They are not an escape from society, but from oneself. They are an escape from the unendurable state of a living being whose consciousness has been crippled, deformed, mutilated, but not eliminated, so that its mangled remnants are screaming that he cannot go on without it. The phenomenon of an entire generation turning to drugs is such an indictment of today's culture, of its basic philosophy and its educational establishment, that no further evidence is necessary and no lesser causal explanation is possible. If they had not been trained to believe that belonging to a pack is a moral and metaphysical necessity, would high school children risk the physical destruction of their brains in order to belong to a pot-smoking in-group? If they had not been trained to believe that reason is impotent, would college students take mind-expanding drugs to seek some higher means of cognition? If they had not been trained to believe that reality is an illusion, would young persons take drugs to reach a higher reality that seems to obey their wishes, except that they are smashed on pavements in attempting to fly out of windows? If a trained pack of commentators sharing the same beliefs did not glamorize the obscene epidemic of self-destruction by means of such estimates as idealistic, revolutionary, new lifestyle, new morality, drug culture, would the young have any cover left to hide their own deep-down knowledge that drug addiction is nothing but a public confession of personal impotence? It is the educational establishment that has created this national disaster. It is philosophy that has created the educational establishment. The anti-rational philosophic trend of the past 200 years has run its course and reached its climax. To oppose it will require a philosophical revolution, or rather, a rebirth of philosophy. Appeals to home, church, mother, and tradition will not do. They never did. Ideas can be fought only by means of ideas. The educational establishment has to be fought from bottom to top, from cause to consequences, from nursery schools to universities, from basic philosophy to campus riots, from without and from within. This last is addressed to the many intelligent youths who are aware of the state of higher education and refuse to go to college, or, having gone, drop out in revulsion. They are playing into the comprachicos' hands. If the better minds desert the universities, this country will reach a situation in which the incompetent and the second-rate will carry the official badge of the intellect, and there will be no place for the first-rate and independent to function or even to hide. To preserve one's mind intact through a modern college education is a test of courage and endurance. But the battle is worth it, and the stakes are the highest possible to man, the survival of reason. The time spent in college is not wasted if one knows how to use the comprachicos against themselves. One learns in reverse, by subjecting their theories to the most rigorously critical examination and discovering what is false and why, what is true, what are the answers. As to the drugged contingents of hippies and activists, I should like to address the following to those among them who may still be redeemable, as well as to those who may be tempted to join their hordes. The modern comprachicos have an advantage over their ancient predecessors. When a victim was mutilated physically, he retained the capacity to discover who had done it. But when a victim is mutilated mentally, he clings to his own destroyers as his masters and his only protectors against the horror of the state which they have created. He remains as their tool and their plaything, which is part of their racket. If, in the chaos of your motives, some element is a genuine desire to crusade in a righteous cause and take part in a heroic battle, direct it against the proper enemy. Yes, the world is in a terrible state. But what caused it? Capitalism? Where do you see it, except for some battered remnants that still manage to keep us all alive? Yes, today's establishment is a rotted structure of mindless hypocrisy. But who and what is the establishment? Who directs it? Not the big businessmen who mouth the same collectivist slogans as your professors and pour out millions of dollars to support them. Not the so-called conservatives who compete with your professors in attacking reason and in spreading the same collectivist, altruist, mystic notions. Not the Washington politicians who are the eager dummies of your professorial ventriloquists. Not the communications media who publicize your cause, praise your ideals, and preach your professors' doctrines. It is ideas that determine the actions of all those people, and it is the educational establishment that determines the ideas of a nation. It is your professors' ideas that have ruled the world for the past 50 years or longer, with a growing spread of devastation, not improvement. And today, in default of opposition, these ideas are destroying the world, as they destroyed your mind and self-esteem. You are miserably helpless and want to rebel? Then rebel against the ideas of your teachers. You will never find a harder, nobler, or more heroic form of rebellion. You have nothing to lose but your anxiety. You have your mind to win. In conclusion, I should like to quote, for one of the guiltiest groups, the parents, a passage from Atlas Shrugged, which deals with Reardon's thoughts after the death of the wet nurse. He thought of all the living species that train their young in the art of survival. The cats who teach their kittens to hunt. The birds who spend their strident effort on teaching their fledglings to fly. Yet man, whose tool of survival is the mind, does not merely fail to teach a child to think, but devotes the child's education to the purpose of destroying his brain, of convincing him that thought is futile and evil before he has started to think. Men would shudder, he thought, if they saw a mother bird plucking the feathers from the wings of her young, then pushing him out of the nest to struggle for survival. Yet that was what they did to their children. Armed with nothing but meaningless phrases, this boy had been thrown to fight for existence. He had hobbled and groped through a brief, doomed effort. He had screamed his indignant, bewildered protest, and had perished in his first attempt to soar on his mangled wings. August through December, 1970.
And that was the end of Chapter 7, Return of the Primitive, Ayn Rand, The Anti-Industrial Revolution, written, or actually read by Bernadette Dunn. And again, Miss Rand overly complicates things and She makes the left seem much more dangerous than it really is. In this particular situation with education, because she calls it Compra Chico, she kind of misses the mark. It's liberalism that's at issue here, and it is not our children that are going to be affected. It is liberal children that have been raised by liberal parents, gone to liberal preschools, elementary schools, high schools, that are going to suffer. The liberal children and the stupid. The people that really need an education are going to suffer the most. The children that are smart, that are sharp, that are in the top 10%, they're going to be able to figure it out quick. They're going to be able to figure out what's a con and what isn't. And they're either going to, they may just decide, throw up their hands, say, screw this, I'm going somewhere else. Because not every university in the United States of America is as described by Ayn Rand, like Berkeley, for instance. Okay, so they'll go somewhere else. Or they will simply play the game so as to be able to get their degree, meet their goals. So, again, she would be much more effective if she would refer to the Compra Chicos as what they are, liberals. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.